I cannot stress this enough. Men are not worth settling for in any circumstance, any way, shape, or form. It's not worth it. Like, we're so indoctrinated to believe that, like, we have to get married. We have to, like, aspire to, like, having a relationship, having a man in our lives. Like, the goal shouldn't be to get married. The goal should be to be happy. So if a man in your life is not making your life better, easier, happier, more enjoyable, like, there's no reason he should be in your life. At least when men settle for a partner, they get like a personal assistant, a house manager, a nanny, a chef, a therapist. What do women get when we settle for a man that treats us like less than the way that we want to be treated? We get emotionally, physically, mentally drained. It is not worth it. Once you get to the like mindset that like men are not worth settling for, that is when you get the good men, because they're the only ones that you'll accept.
Pathetic. So this queen says that society teaches her and other women like her to settle for men. I mean, at no point did she ever consider the possibility that it's the men settling for her. And she said the goal isn't that you should get married. The goal is that you should be happy. So let me get this straight. You staying alone, getting your taco cracked by Chad/Tyrone and riding the carousel is what's going to make you happy? Is that the ultimate goal? And let me say it, queen, all the things that you spouted off as what men get in exchange for getting married, you're really overvaluing what you bring to the table, because men don't get that. You see, what men get is your debts. They get to pay for all of your expenses. They get to pay for the house, for everything. It's not free labor, like you queens love to call it. And at the end of the day, women get a lot more because after 7 years, when your fee-fees change and you decide that you deserve better, as if your standards weren't high enough already, you divorce him, you get half the assets, plus bonus payouts of alimony and child support. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that your calculations are off a tad bit there, Colleen. I mean, be honest with yourself. The guy who married you paid full price for something that you gave another man for free. Like a used car. He put some mileage on it, molded the seats the way he likes it, took some traction off the wheels, and provoked a few oil changes. Before we move on, I want to bring attention that 70% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. Come on, fam. You've seen my logo on other channels, and you're already here. Please hit that subscribe button and support the channel. It really helps out. Moving on.
Let's stop calling the bare minimum efforts, because those two phrases do not go together. And by the way, I'm Laura. I'm here to guide you in healing and building a lasting relationship without feeling like you're settling for less. So hit like and follow for more. So bare minimum is just doing enough to keep the connection alive, but not enough to make it thrive. And here's the thing, bare minimum is confusing because it looks like something. It's not nothing. Text you back, they occasionally show up, maybe they even say all of the right things. But there's a huge difference between effort that feels intentional and effort that is just enough to keep you from walking in the other direction. It's like somebody playing a game without ever really fully committing to it. And the easiest way to spot it, look at patterns, not moments. Anyone can pull out all the stops once in a while, but true effort shows up in consistency, in thoughtfulness, and in the energy that they bring to the relationship. And if you're left constantly questioning their intentions or trying to interpret crumbs as a full meal, then you're dealing with the bare minimum. So let's stop glorifying scraps of attention as signs of potential. If someone wants to keep you in their life, they'll make it clear. And remember, don't follow their socials, follow mine instead. And head to the link in my bio if you want to dig into this a little bit deeper.
Whatever.
Now, I'm going to surprise most of my female viewers out here when I say, you know what? You are absolutely right that you shouldn't settle for the bare minimum. That was a shock, I know, for a disco gorilla to say that. But here's the problem with that. You see, you women have no concept of what the actual bare minimum should be. Because, as always, you deserve better, you deserve more. Your bare minimum is fluctuating at all times. And let me make that clear. It fluctuates upwards. If in one relationship, 2 texts a day was your bare minimum, going into your next relationship, bare minimum is 3 texts. And the one after that, 4 texts. And then one after that, 5 texts. And then you have to measure out how many hours during the day he has got to dedicate to you. And then you give him a quota as to how many sweet lines he's got to tell you throughout the day. That's another bare minimum. He's got to take me to these amount of restaurants. That's the bare minimum. He's got to tell me his emotions 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a week. That's the bare minimum. And the problem with all this is that not one of you reciprocates that. No, I'm sorry, you don't. Because in your mind, that's the man's job. He's got to do that. He's got to do what in my head is the bare minimum. And if he can't read my mind and say, hey, you know what? Her bare minimum is this much. I got to walk away. Go to the next guy and have a higher standard. But here's the funny thing. You would apply this bare minimum crap to average men, i.e. men at your level. If it was a Chatter Tyrone Thunderslong coming in there, that bare minimum is out the window because he can get away with a lot of stuff. So the question you should be asking yourself is, if I'm going to put a bare minimum on him, do I reciprocate the bare minimum? And it's not what you think. Okay? It's not, okay, well, I text him 5 times a day. That's the bare minimum. He's got to text me back. No. That's your bare minimum. What about him? What if he says, you know what my bare minimum is? For you to be understanding that I'm busy and I'm working and I can't take time away from work to text you your bare minimum. My bare minimum is, I'm a man, I have to provide, let me be a man. My bare minimum is, I pay all the bills up in this house. You maintain the house. My bare minimum is, don't nag me. I love peace and quiet. But you queens never think about that because, you know, the only important bare minimum is your bare minimum. Until some other girl goes above and beyond his bare minimum. And then you find yourself back into thy streets, asking yourself, where are all the good men? Moving on.
Let's go over what the bare minimum actually is. What I'm going to list are not things that you should be praised for doing in a relationship, friendship, anything like that. They are simply the bare minimum. Making you feel loved and cared for, whether that's a good morning text, a call at the end of the night, actually going out, going on dates, doing things together, that is literally the bare minimum. You should never be not feeling loved and appreciated in a relationship. Being in a relationship where the communication is clear and consistent is the bare minimum. You shouldn't have to worry or try to figure out for yourself why someone's mad at you, why they don't want to talk to you. When there is an issue that arises, the two of you being able to sit down and having a mature conversation about it is the bare minimum. Being loyal and respectful and never raising a voice at you or getting super angry and being immature about it is the bare minimum. Definitely took me some time to realize this one, but being able to say sorry for something and notice your faults and actually acknowledge, hey, you know what, I'm sorry I made you feel a certain way, or I'm sorry I did this to upset you, is the bare minimum. We should not be on our hands and knees praising someone for being able to take accountability for their own actions. Someone genuinely wanting to spend time with you and saying, hey, you know what, let's hang out tonight, or I planned a little thing for us to do. That is not something extraordinary. That, again, is the bare minimum. I think everyone just needs to take a step back and realize their worth and distinguish the difference between what is the bare minimum and what are things that are actually going above and beyond and should be recognized.
Surprise!
Gee, Queen, I gotta say, that's a long-winded way of saying some items that could have actually been summed up. Allow this gorilla to try to translate this a little bit from womanese and actually simplify it for everyone who doesn't want a headache of deciphering your femme speak. All right, her points of the bare minimum are, number one, communication. And I find this one interesting because, yes, I do agree that communication is a bare minimum, but there are 2 types of communication. There's direct communication, which is usually what men do, and it's almost always logic-based. They're like, hey, I don't like A, B, and C, and I think that we should address X, Y, and Z. And then there's femlogic communication, where they speak in code and they expect the men to decipher what they were trying to say. And if they can't, well, that means that they're not meeting the bare minimum. I'm sorry, Queen, but this is a reality that a lot of men have to face. Another bullet point of what you just said is being loyal. So you expect a man to be loyal, and I'm assuming when you say loyal, you mean schmexually loyal to you. This is where the waters get muddied a little bit, because this really depends on the level of man that you're dealing with. And I have to be honest with you, ladies, a lot of you don't understand what I'm about to say. It's not overly complicated. It's just hard for you to accept. You see, when you're dealing with men, there are 2 types of loyalty, I'm going to say. There's the traditional celibacy loyalty, which 90+% of the time comes from your average man. A guy who's at your level is not going to cheat on you with physical intimacy with another woman, because he's at your level and he expects the same from you. And that is basically what women consider across the board being loyal. But the outliers are your higher HVM guys, the guys who are worth a lot. The guys that you're really attracted to because they have a lot of options. Let's be honest, ladies. A guy who 100 women want to sleep with is the guy that you want to sleep with because he's got something special about him. Those guys don't view loyalty the same way that traditional average men view it. In their view, loyalty is dedicating their hard-earned resources to give you and their children a comfortable life, and that's loyalty right there. But sleeping around is a part of their reality, and you have to accept it. Do I say that's good? No. Do I say that's bad? No. What I do say is that's kind of the reality that you have to accept when you're dealing with a guy of that level. So you have to keep that in mind. The next bullet point, she said, is quite confusing because she wrapped 2 things up in one. And let me explain. Basically, she said apologizing is wrapped up in the same bullet point as taking accountability. That's not the same thing. Apologizing for a wrongdoing and taking accountability are two different things. Why do I say this? Because, let me be honest, it's really easy for a woman to say, I'm sorry, but it's really hard for them to take accountability for their own actions. I could go into details about this one, but it's really not worth the headache right now. Let's just say apologizing and taking accountability for your own actions are two separate things. If you're going to hold a man to that standard, you better be ready to have yourself held to that same standard. And that's really difficult for women. The last bullet point she said was planning dates as being a bare minimum. I found it amazing that planning dates as being a bare minimum from women to be honestly just hypocritical. How are you going to hold the bare minimum that you yourself can't reach to someone else? But that doesn't matter at this point, Queen, because in your mind, because you were born with a built-in taco, you deserve everything that comes to mind. In his mind, you deserve everything you get, good or bad. Moving on.
This girl at work said something to me the other day, and I can't get it out of my head. I heard a baby around her. I was like, oh God, that's free birth control for me. And she's like, oh, that makes me think of my little baby. And I was like, yeah, I'm too selfish. I don't want kids. I have a dog. That's enough for me. A couple of days later, she's like, so you don't want kids, but you have a dog. Do you have a boyfriend or anything? And I was like, no, I've never had a boyfriend. She was like, how old are you? And I said, 27. She's like, and you've never had a boyfriend? And I never really cared. But there's something about her saying that it really hit me this time, because I've never been on even 2 dates with the same person. Even guys I've talked to or hooked up with, they'll slowly stop talking to me, and then I find out they have a girlfriend or they get into a new relationship a week later. And when I was younger and I didn't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, I'd be like, it's because I'm fat. I used to weigh 320 pounds. I lost 160 pounds. It's not like I'm being hit up every day, every week, even every month with people in my DMs or messaging me on Snapchat trying to get with me. It's no one hits me up.
Game over, man. It's game over.
All right, Queen, we already understand that you have a complicated situation where it hit you in the feels when this woman said about you not having a relationship. And that's something about her saying that part that hit you that hard. It's really simple. It's because she hit you with the absolute unfiltered truth. And it's hard to swallow that pill. Understandable, but hey, listen, let's slow this down, because you've been shooting off a bunch of things in a bunch of random directions about having relationships, blah, blah, blah. And you're really not concentrating on the one thing that you should be concentrating on. And that is the men in your life don't want to have a relationship with you because they're seeing you as non-relationship material, just recreational use. And it's sad because you're young and obviously you've worked on yourself, you lost a lot of weight, and you've upped your SMV. The problem is that you upped your SMV from below average to average. And it seems that you think that your SMV is actually above average right now. It's really not, because there are a bunch of other things you haven't done. I'm sorry, Colleen, but you are actually kind of a tomboy. And believe it or not, the majority of men don't like tomboys. Now, I'm assuming that you like girls too, but I doubt that you're complaining about dating women. This is what I recommend that you do from here on out. You learn how to be softer, because you're obviously very hard. Be more feminine. It'll get you much farther. I mean, that's why men walk away from you, because you're not showing the things that they like. But let's hear what else you have to say before I give all my dating advice to you.
It's not even I'm being selective with who I'm picking and turning people away. It's just people aren't coming up to me, and I don't understand. Not I have an issue with people wanting to hook up with me, but if it tries to go a step further, they're absolutely not, no. I don't want to just hook up with random people that I don't know, so I'll tell people that I don't want to hook up with them until I know them, and then they're like, well, you're a prude. I'm I literally can't win. Why it's hitting me so hard this time is the fact that she had the audacity to ask, by choice? And I just sit there and I'm no, it's not by choice. When I was younger, I was oh, it's because I'm fat. Oh, it's because I'm fat. Once I lose weight, I'll have no problem. And now that I'm not fat, I'm just what is it? What is the reason? So now I'm going to finish my energy drink and hit the gym until I can't feel my emotions anymore. Maybe that's the reason.
All right, my post plus wall Colleen. You and not feeling your emotions is not the reason here. Let me try to help you out here the best I can. The issue you're having right now is the bulk of your life, you've known what it's like to be a heavy woman, and you've lived that life. Now that you're average size, although physically you know how to manage that on the day-to-day, emotionally you really don't know how to manage that. You're still reacting to things as if you were in a bigger body. You have to slow down. And I advise that you actually get with more feminine women and learn how to be more feminine. Now, I know that the argument can be made that weight has nothing to do with femininity or being a tomboy. That is true most of the time, but with your case, it's not 100% solid. You don't know how to be feminine in your new shape, in your new body, with your new attractiveness. I highly recommend that you find a female mentor that can teach you to be more feminine. It really doesn't come down to something that's wrong with you. It comes down to experiences that you don't have. Okay, look at it this way, Queen. If you never won a beauty pageant, how do you know how to handle success after you win your first beauty pageant? You don't. So go out there, find someone that's going to teach you how to handle this, or just settle down with Mr. Average and stop trying to be a boss babe that loves to ride the carousel and just be a happily married woman. The worst that can happen, you can be content with your new life.
Are we done here?
I'm just saying, if you enjoy this audit, click on the video in the end screen for more content. If you would like to support the channel, please follow the link in the description to donate to our beer fund, or like, subscribe, and share this video on other social media platforms. If you agree or disagree with anything about this audit, please let us know in the comments. I'm going to leave this audit right here. I'll see all of you in the next episode.